One morning recently, I woke up bursting with energy and raring to go. And immediately my attention was directed to my to-do list for the day, which brimmed with this heap of responsibilities. And overwhelm just rushed over me as I even began to think about it. And think about all that I had to do in what felt like such a few short hours of time to get it done. But I was determined to accomplish more than humanly possible, so I threw on my workout clothes, I gulped down my coffee and my water, and I barreled down the stairs and out the door with my dog Leo. The first item on the list that had to get done was to exercise him, which means to run him and run along with him along the 2+ mile path that encircles the lake behind my house. And he's a boisterous puppy who needs an exuberant amount of intensive exercise every day. So it's important that we start the day with a run. And actually, I enjoy that time. It's one of my favorite times of the day with Leo, and I appreciate the beauty of nature in the mornings. It's usually a special time for me to commune with God and hear from Him. But yet that morning, I was so driven to get this task checked off my list so that I could move quickly on to the next one and the next one and the next one that I almost missed everything that I loved. And as I took off running as fast as I could, I began to obsess about how in the world I was going to get it all done. And how I really needed to be, instead of taking the time, I felt like a waste of time running him, I really needed to be on to my next task rather than spending 20 minutes exercising him. And literally by this point, I was dragging the poor dog behind me and my mind started racing. My energy intensified and I pushed even harder to try to finish quicker. Well, a quarter of the way in, Leo, sensing my stress, obviously, stopped suddenly and he just planted his feet underneath him and he began to pull backwards forcefully on his leash as hard as he could. And he was trying to wiggle out of his collar and he refused to keep going. I tried to keep running and pull him along several times and try to coax him along, but the harder I tried, the more he resisted. And it was obvious he was not going to budge. And he's a really strong dog, so I was forced to stop and regroup because when he makes up his mind, he's not going to do it. So in my regrouping, though, my initial reaction was irritation. But as I looked and saw the look of fear and confusion on his sweet face, I quickly sobered. Feeling sorry for him at this point, I patted his head and consoled him and felt really bad. And then I took a few deep breaths and I began to shift my energy into a much lower key. And as my body began to soften, so did his. And realizing at that point just how frenzied I was being actually jolted me back into reality. Standing still for those few moments felt like such a waste of time and a loss of productivity, but it was exactly what I needed to gain perspective. I had not only stressed myself out within the first hour of waking up for the day, I had unnerved my sweet dog too, despite doing one of the things that we both usually enjoy so much. I had missed the moments that I love with him. And as I looked at my surroundings, I realized that I almost missed the beauty of the red, orange, and pink painted sky of the sunrise. I had not even looked up and noticed. I had overlooked the birds flying all around me, chirping in their harmony, in their beautiful harmony that they do, and the stillness and the peace of the lake water that looked like glass. The beauty of God's heart was evident all around me, and I couldn't see it because I was driving full speed ahead in do mode, forcing my will on the day as hard as I possibly could. And in my overwhelm, I had resorted to my old pattern of burden bearing and self-sufficiency, and that never ends well for me, especially when the load is humanly impossible to carry. Well, I was saddened by the realization that I overlooked the opportunity to experience the calming supernatural peace of God's presence and to seek His wisdom, His way, and even His resources in accomplishing all that had to be done. And as I realized that, I repented to God. I also grieved the fact that I hadn't even asked Him or even stopped to consider what was on His heart and His agenda for the day, what was most important to Him. Pondering that folly of mine, I slowed and I stilled my body at an even deeper level, and I began to reconnect with my heart. Surrendering the burden of responsibilities to him in that moment, I asked for his perspective and insight. And it's never too late to do that. Thank God for his grace. And as the roar of the noise quieted in my mind, I heard his calming, reassuring voice in my spirit. He said, "Con, it all happens in the stillness, in my peace and rest. That's where my supernatural power is. It's not a waste of time. It's actually the most productive use of your time. Everything gets done much quicker and easier in the spirit realm, where I go before you. I expand time. I reveal my wisdom and my ways. And I move mountains for you when you seek me and you trust me. Take today, moment by moment, and live in the unforced rhythms of my grace. And it's the most peaceful and productive way you'll ever know. It's the only way you'll see all of my grace and favor in your life. Don't stress or worry. I'll get it all done. Walk with me. Watch me." And oh, how everything shifts when he speaks. A huge weight was lifted off my shoulders in that moment. My body felt lighter and my spirit was tranquil. And overcome with gratitude now, instead of overwhelmed with stress, it suddenly felt like a new day. And I had new eyes to see. I was postured in rest, and I was eager and excited for all the goodness that he would reveal and the enjoyment that I would experience in the day ahead. I knew now it was all going to get done, and it wasn't going to feel hard, and I didn't have to do it all alone. I breathed a sigh of relief, and I smiled in anticipation. And Leo must have sensed that shift too in me, because in that moment he took the slack of his leash in his mouth and playfully leaped towards me. He was ready to go. Now no longer another dreaded task on the overwhelming to-do list. We had a fun adventure ahead of us.